Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you a compilation of some of the best Choosing Beggar stories of 2021. Just because I signed a prenup doesn't mean that you get to decide what to do with your possessions. Dear Moneyist, my husband is 67 years old with an estate worth $2 million. His first wife died. He has a severely handicapped daughter, and we signed a prenup when we married 3 years ago. He has a sister who is a year older than I am. I am 64 years old with 2 adult children from a previous marriage that ended in divorce. His sister has a son and daughter, and she has 2 granddaughters. My husband wants to leave our house, which he owns and bought before we married, to me for as long as I live. He does not want my children to inherit it when I die. He wants it to go to his sister's family. Can he prevent my children from inheriting property he wills to me? The bulk of his estate is going to his daughter's trust and sister anyway. It's possible I may outlive his sister and daughter. I know I'm the newbie here, but it just seems a little harsh that I can only have the house to live in and not sell it if I need the money for future medical expenses. He's very controlling of his money. What do you think? The new wife with a prenup. Dear new wife, maintaining control of his money and/or managing his money is distinctly different from being controlling about money. It's his money, and it's up to your husband to do with it as he sees fit. That includes taking care of his daughter financially in the event that he predeceases her. Giving you a life estate or right of residence in his last will and testament is more than generous. You don't have to worry about never having a place to live. It's time to right-size your expectations. You've been married to this man for 3 years. He is retired, I presume, and has lived a long and healthy life. As you said, you were not a couple when he earned most of this money, and in a community property state, you are not entitled to any money that was earned before you married, even if you divorced. In a separate property state, I can't see a judge awarding you his home and 50% of his assets. You can look into a health savings account, HSA, to help save money for retirement, especially healthcare expenses in your retirement. You are eligible if you have a high deductible insurance plan, but it also allows you to shelter up to $3,550 for an individual or $7,100 for a family in pre-tax money, which is withheld by your employer or set aside by you, especially if you buy your own health insurance, and placed in an HSA each year. An estate planner can help you explore other options. In the meantime, by allowing you to live in his house for the remainder of your days does not mean you own the property. This is a win for someone you've only been married to for 3 years, especially given that you are both in your 60s. If you sold the house, where might that leave his severely disabled daughter if she were to need full-time care or future medical assistance? I see no reason why your children should be part of his estate planning. His daughter is his #1 priority, and that is exactly how it should be. One of the biggest post-retirement expenses has been removed from your life, although you may have to pay for maintenance for upkeep and taxes on the property depending on your husband's will. That's a small price to pay for his generosity. You have at least 5 more years of work ahead of you. You will have to make them count. I certainly hope you enjoy them. In our first story, why don't charity shops have better prices? Let's jump right in. Fun fact, thrift stores are called charity shops over here in the UK and Northern Ireland because they are always associated with a charity. So I was doing some volunteer work for a charity shop for heart conditions, and I had been assigned to stand outside with a money box so people walking past the shop could donate. It seemed a little silly to me as I thought it would have been more effective to walk around with the box, but hey, it beat ironing donated clothes in the summer heat, and I burn like paper under any kind of warmth, lol. Now we all know that charity shop prices tend to be pretty low, especially for donated fare, and even the stuff made firsthand for the shop was reasonably priced. And our location was in a pretty nice spot, right in the middle of the busiest commercial walkway, so we always got more decent stuff than charity shops more out of the way, and again, we were reasonably priced, nothing that anyone would contest over, right? Apparently not for this choosing beggar. Now I will admit I only caught the tail end of this person's righteous ire, but his motivation would be obvious. So I'm standing there, still thanking the heavens for being outside when this guy comes storming out, enough that I could feel the breeze shift as he passed. But he turned back to look at me, clearly miffed about something, and he stomped over, and I'm thinking, oh no. Why is everything so expensive in there? Excuse me? He repeated the question more insistently. Why is everything so expensive in there? And I was internally panicking because I don't do well with confrontation, and this guy just towered over me. So I could only blurt out that everything in the shop wasn't that expensive, and it wasn't. It was a charity shop, for freak's sake. The most expensive thing in there was probably only £30, which is $41, and that was stuff made for the store. Everything else was super cheap, but I never said that. All I could manage was those words. He frowned, clearly not happy with my answer. But all that money, and where does it go? You're all ripping people off. Now, if I was in a better state of mind, I would have roasted this guy for thinking that a charity shop was ripping people off, and at this point, I was stuttering. I told him that the money goes to a heart condition charity, and it still wasn't expensive. And I probably didn't sound convincing, but he seemed to think he wouldn't get what he wanted to hear from me, so off he storms, and off I run back inside, praying for my heart to calm down because, whoa. I told my manager about this, and she filled in the rest. Our choosing beggar was apparently trying to haggle the price down for a bracelet for his girlfriend. But, you know, prices in stores generally can't be haggled, and honestly, if he wasn't even willing to pay full price for a charity store piece of jewelry, then I doubt he would have a girlfriend for very long. So it was quite obvious what his intentions were when he spoke to me. The manager wouldn't budge, and he thought he'd take his anger out on me, a volunteer worker who was outside just trying to get donations from the public. He wanted an easier target. I'm just so glad I don't work retail anymore. Winning a prize competition brings out the choosing beggars. Longtime peeker, first-time poster. This happened 1 week ago. Some backstory. I run a small bookstagram in my native language. For those who don't know what bookstagram is, it's a basic Instagram account where you post photos of books you've read and rant about them in stories. Because I am a poor student and pay rent and food, etc., I don't really have a lot of money to spend on books, but I'm managing, getting a lot of books for Christmas, birthdays, sometimes I buy them myself, and I go to the library a lot. So when there's some book competition, I mean like where you can win a book, I always join in. It's fun, and you know I can get a book for free. Here's the encounter. One of the bigger bookstagrammers made this Christmas competition, and the main prize was a special edition book signed by the author and made especially for Fairy Loot, a very expensive bookish mystery box which I definitely can't afford but absolutely need. I was amazed when she contacted me and said that I had won. Unfortunately though, she made the draw of the winner public. So I got this message not even 5 minutes after me knowing that I won. This girl, the choosing beggar, seemed very nice, but you know it was weird for her to message me. Hi, congrats on winning in this competition from that person. I was curious if there was any possibility if you could trade the book you won with me for something else. This made me feel weird. First of all, I didn't even hold the book in my hands yet. She doesn't even follow me, and if I would not like the book, I would probably just make a competition myself to give back to my amazing small bookie family. Hey, I think I'm not planning to do such a thing, but just for the info, what would you like to trade it for? Choosing Beggar starts naming basic books that I could definitely buy for cheap online. I'm still trying to be polite because I hate drama. Haha, yeah, sorry, I think I'll hold on to my prize. You know, I never won anything and it makes me happy. It's like a Christmas gift. Well, what about my Christmas gift? I just need the book. You got it for free anyway. I was trying to buy it online, but it was sold out everywhere. You already know that it's a special edition and you can't find it anywhere, at least in our country. Okay, well, thanks for your offer, but no. Have a nice day and Happy New Year. Choosing beggar logic. We are doing you a favor, so you should pay all our rent. Let's jump right in. This is a story about my sister-in-law and her useless boyfriend. My sister-in-law is my wife's sister and is a terrific person. Useless boyfriend is decidedly not. In the r/choosing beggars section, he's the gift that keeps on giving, like chlamydia. In April 2020, having lost their jobs due to COVID, they moved in with us rent-free until they get back on their feet. We're happy to have my sister-in-law. She's been absolutely terrific, pitching in around the house, spending time with the family, and being my wife's best friend. This is decidedly not true of useless boyfriend. He locks himself in their room playing video games all day long. He complains about the food, only recently agreed to chip in for higher speed internet, which he kept demanding we pay for, and otherwise makes it clear how much of an imposition it is for him to live in our home rent-free. My sister-in-law was finally able to get a job full-time last month. Their finances are still a mess, but things are improving and she said they'd move out in the spring. Honestly, we're all going to miss her. Useless boyfriend? The best I can say is I don't care if the door hits him on the way out or not, just as long as he's on the other side of it. Our oldest son is 23 and moved about 30 minutes away back in fall of 2019, so he could be close to his work. Thankfully, he's remained employed full-time despite COVID. In the fall of 2020, he renewed his lease for 1 year in a nice but small studio apartment. Recently, a fantastic job opportunity arose for our son. He's moving much further away, which is sad, but it's a great opportunity and we're happy for him. The largest problem for him is his lease, which still has 10 months to go. He spoke with his landlord, who is a good guy. The landlord said he'd be willing to let our son out of the lease ordinarily, but with COVID, he has several tenants who haven't paid rent for a while and he can't afford another apartment generating no income. He agreed that he would let our son out of the lease the moment he could rent the apartment to someone else, but the market has been really slow and he doesn't know how long that would take. I don't blame the landlord a bit, he's being fair. Looking to get out of the lease sooner, our son suggested my sister-in-law and useless boyfriend move in. He would move out February 1st, but pay for February and March. They would pick up the rent in April. This would give them 2 more months to get their finances in order, and he'd only be out 2 months' rent. And as an added bonus, it's closer to sister-in-law's job and would cut 10 minutes off her daily commute. Everybody's happy, right? Well, everybody except useless boyfriend, that is. Looking at the apartment, he complained it was too small. He complained that they'd have to pay for food and utilities. You know, the things he enjoys for free because my wife and I are paying now. He complained he'd have to set up his computer in the living room instead of the bedroom. Then he dropped this little nugget. With utilities, it's going to be higher. You should pay all our rent. We're doing you a favor. My son assumed he misheard him and restated his offer. He'd pay for February and March. They'd assume payments in April. Nope. Not good enough. To useless boyfriend's way of thinking, our son should pay their rent for the remainder of the lease, 10 months, and let them live there rent-free. My sister-in-law was mortified at her useless boyfriend for trying to take advantage of our son, her nephew that way. After months and months of listening to him complain about his suffering while others paid for everything, she finally had enough. Useless boyfriend, I like this place, so I'm moving in. But you're not. When we get home, you're packing your stuff and I'm driving you to your mother's. No more free rides. We're done. Our son called with the happy news on multiple fronts while they drove home. Instead of 30 minutes, they took an hour to get home and we were a little concerned. We called and she confirmed everything was okay. So we assembled the moving boxes for him so he could start packing right away. Why postpone the party? He walked in the door to find everything he needed to pack up. Apparently on the ride back, useless boyfriend was whining and complaining about their breakup. They stopped to talk for a bit, at which point he said something, sister-in-law won't say what, that creeped her out, and she asked me to drive him to his mother's, which I was more than pleased to do. We drove about an hour to his mother's place without speaking. I helped him carry his stuff to the porch. Out of politeness, I extended him my hand and wished him luck. He stared at me and didn't say a word. There was no, thanks for letting me live with you for free for almost a year, or tell sister-in-law I'm sorry. He just stared like the petulant child he is. My sister-in-law is doing really well. We're going to miss her moving away, and especially our son moving quite a distance away. But useless boyfriend? We'll miss him about as much as we will miss last week's recycling. At least the recycling can be turned into something useful. Here's my update. It was a busy weekend. On Saturday, we helped our son pack and move out to pursue his future. Not going to lie, it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Huge, uncontrollable sobs from my wife as he pulled away. We gave him the 2 months' rent so he doesn't have to eat that expense. We realized we had completely forgotten about the security deposit. Landlord did a quick walkthrough and cut him a check in full on the spot. We gave him a check on sister-in-law's behalf, so everything is now completely in her name. On Sunday, we helped my sister-in-law move in. More sobbing from my wife, who has really grown to love having her sister living with us. It was made better by them scheduling all the who visits who when for the week. Sister-in-law has put useless boyfriend in the rearview mirror. Useless boyfriend did call her to apologize and try to make things better. I didn't hear the conversation, but he apparently said all the wrong things because she was only madder by the time she hung up on him. He hasn't called or texted her since. One key difference, having had a front row seat for her past breakups, there was no second guessing this time. She seems sure this is the right move for her. I think this will stick. Thanks everyone for the kind words. Apparently, if a choosing beggar is an expert, he's gotta get a deal. I had this fruit bowl from a cultural festival put on eBay for a couple of months now. Fair price, up for negotiation. I put all the info, size, color, etc. online, and I do photography, so of course I try to put my items in the best light possible. You could see all the details, true color, and so on. Choosing Beggar messages me in early December, asks a few questions, we come to an agreement soon, and she asks for my address. Tells me the day of pickup she can't make it, but is still very interested. No problem, it's still online, but first come, first serve. 2020 passes and she calls me up to make an appointment because she wants the bowl. Bad weather conditions sadly cancel our plans. It's too slippery to drive from another town to mine. Sure, no problem. Today she calls me to say that she is on the way and can be there by 12:30. It's cool. I'm in my home office, but I made up my mind to block her after today if she doesn't show up. She arrives and calls for me to come downstairs. I bring the bowl, nobody's in front of my house. I call her. We are sitting in the car at the road, bring it here. Nope, I'm in shorts, full home office mode. You want it, you come to the entrance. Choosing Beggar shows up with another dude. Here we finally are. She takes the bowl from my hand and starts placing it on the ground several times. I'm confused. This is not clay. It's glazed, but this is wood, right? This sounds like wood. Ma'am, this is clay. It is a handmade glazed bowl from the culture market with certified sellers. Choosing Beggar keeps upping and downing the flipping bowl as if the floor was going to prove something. Choosing Beggar's friend says, "Hi, I'm Moroccan." Okay. This must be wood. She lets the bowl sit on the ground, starts walking circles in front of my house. Choosing Beggar friend says, "We were really expecting something else." There is a detailed description on the site and I took pictures from every angle. Also, I pick up the bowl and flip it over, exposing the unglazed material at the base of the bowl. This is clay. It is glazed and burned clay. Choosing Beggar stops pacing around to come look at the bowl. Okay, but this sounds like wood. Have you been to Morocco? Because I have been to Morocco, and this is not what I was expecting. Then I recommend a specialty shop the next time, not secondhand goods on eBay. This is not what I was expecting. What are we gonna do? Not what I was expecting. I drove one town over to you, so what's happening now? I assume she wanted me to be apologetic that a secondhand item was not up to her expectations after seeing detailed photos of the bowl and asking questions. She was putting it on me to offer a bargain price. I was willing to bargain, but this was just a waste of my time. I guess that's it then. I closed the entrance and went into the basement to put the bowl back. I don't understand how people have the time to drive 2 times to my city to waste my time like that. But I am glad she wasted gas, so it was not a total loss for me. Mow my lawn or give me money. Let's jump right in. This is more my dad's story than mine, however, he doesn't have Reddit. My dad was mowing our lawn when he spotted an elderly neighbor that he knows who was out for a walk. They had a bit of a chat, and before he left, the elderly neighbor made a joking comment of, "Can you do my lawn when you're done here?" Now, my dad gets along well with the elderly neighbor and knows that he doesn't have much of a lawn to speak of, more like a strip of grass by the sidewalk, and that he struggles to mow it. So to be nice, my dad brings his lawnmower to elderly neighbor's house and mows his lawn for him. The elderly neighbor is extremely grateful, offers my dad some money, which my dad turns down, and then offers him a glass of lemonade that they share from a responsible social distance. That's where the story should have ended. Just a cute story about neighbors being nice. But elderly neighbor lives next to a choosing beggar. Choosing beggar is an elderly, disabled, or in any other way incapable of mowing her own lawn. She just doesn't like to do it. She saw my dad mowing elderly neighbor's lawn and saw him turning down money, and she decided she was entitled to the same thing. She stormed outside and impatiently huffed while dad and elderly neighbor drank lemonade and chatted. When my dad started packing up his lawnmower and getting ready to go, she stomped over and whined, "What about me?" My dad looked at her in confusion and asked what she meant. She responded with, "Aren't you going to mow my lawn too?" My dad declined, since A, she's able to mow her own lawn, B, she has a big lawn, and C, he has other things he needs to do. When dad turned down the choosing beggar, she had the audacity to say, "Well, you should at least give me $15 so I can pay one of the local kids to mow the lawn if you won't do it yourself." My dad didn't even bother arguing with her. He just packed up and left, with her throwing a tantrum as he went. He and elderly neighbor are still good friends. Dad will show up when he sees elderly neighbor's patch of grass getting a bit long and mow it for him, and elderly neighbor drops off jars of jams and chutneys that he makes himself. Choosing beggar huffs every time she sees dad and still makes comments about how he should be mowing her lawn too. I got repairs for free and I'm still giving you a bad review. For context, I work at a really successful body shop in my area. We're gradually getting back to pre-lockdown levels of business with 500,000 last month in sales and 20 to 30 cars dropped off per week. Our Google reviews were gradually approaching 5 stars, until last Friday when a customer, let's call her Old Karen, posted the most scathing review I've ever seen. In addition to swearing she'll never set foot in our shop again, she called me a pathological liar and said that I've caused her the worst experience of her entire life. She's in her 70s. My general manager and his boss both reached out to her, and she recommended that I should be fired. Here's why. Last month, the service manager, let's call him Chris, for a local Lexus dealership, personally drove a pear white 2007 RX 350 to our shop and handed me the keys. I knew it wasn't his vehicle because we had just repaired his 2021 Avalon about a month prior. Chris said that Old Karen, a legacy platinum customer of his dealership, with about 3 generations of her family buying cars from Chris's dealership, had brought the RX 350 in for service and wanted the right side damage repaired. He didn't know what had happened and told me to call Old Karen. By the end of that day, I called Old Karen with a price on the repairs. Her right fender, right front door, and right rear door looked like she had hit a garage or fence, and the mirror was hanging by the door wiring harness. The quoted price for the repairs was just under $9,000. That's a little too much. I don't need the doors fixed, just the mirror. How much would that be? I did some adjustments, and to replace the mirror, we were looking at $500 if the mirror arrived as a painted assembly, and just under $700 if I had to get the mirror painted and get glass replaced. Young man, I am on disability. I live on a fixed income. I cannot afford a $700 mirror. Can't you discount it? I'm a legacy customer. I told Karen that I would have to verify if the mirror would come painted and as an assembly. If it did not, it would cost more because it's a Lexus. Karen seemed okay with that. I ordered the parts and told her it should be 2 days for repairs. That was on Thursday. First replacement mirrors showed up the following Tuesday. The mirror glass and housing were cracked. I told old Karen and ordered a second one. The second replacement had a signal light and a cover designed for one. Old Karen's Lexus had no signal light. I told Karen I would have to order the cover separately. The correct cover didn't come in until the following Thursday, over a full week later, and would have had to be painted. The RX 350 wouldn't be ready until the following Monday, as the paint booths were scheduled for cleaning Friday. Old Karen was livid. "You've had my car for almost 2 weeks for a mirror, and it won't be ready until Monday? I'm coming up there Friday even if it isn't ready, and I'll beat you if it isn't ready." I laughed about it and thought old Karen was lying. Nope. She and her daughter and her husband all came to our shop that Friday and sat around for 2 hours complaining that the Lexus had been at the shop for 2 weeks and wasn't ready. Old Karen complained that she had driven 4 hours to find her vehicle still wasn't ready and that she would have to return the dealership loaner. The general manager showed old Karen the booths being cleaned, and I showed her photos of the damaged mirrors that had arrived previously. Old Karen seemed content and headed home. Monday morning came and Chris from the Lexus dealership called. "Hey, just wanted to make sure old Karen's Lexus is ready to go and used all Lexus parts. We're covering the loaner and her repair cost. She is a Platinum Legacy customer and we can't risk her being unhappy." I told him it was ready to go. Not only did Chris send someone to pay us for the repairs, but he also sent someone to pick up old Karen's Lexus and drive it 4 hours to her house. And that is the service that led to the most scathing review I have ever seen. Wanted $800 worth of plywood for free, and fake cat, and my car. Everyone knows the cost of plywood is sky high right now at around $70 to $80 per sheet. The roofers just finished removing all the old shingles and installed underlayment on my house. They all left for the day and will be back tomorrow to install the shingles after the inspector checks the underlayment and one required row of installed shingles. I hear my doorbell ring, then someone pounding on my door continually like it's an emergency. I answer it, thinking it would be the inspector or an emergency. Instead, it's 2 old ladies in their 60s and an old Cadillac parked behind my car in the driveway. They asked if they could have the 11 sheets of 3/4-inch plywood stacked behind the tree. It's not a trivial amount they were asking for. I explained the roofers haven't finished the roof yet, and what isn't used they will be taking back. They looked surprised that I'm having roof work done, even though they are literally standing right next to a 20-foot dumpster by my front door filled with old torn shingles. I mean, they had to walk around the dumpster to bang on my door. Then one of the women said, "You can give us 2 sheets. You're not using all of them. We want to build a porch." The audacity put me on my heels for a moment, but I was kind to them because they claimed to live a block away, and I just moved in 2 months ago. Again, I politely said they couldn't have any of my plywood, but Home Depot has plenty for sale. They said, "Home Depot wants like $80 a sheet though." To which I replied, "I know, that's how much the roofing company charges me per sheet." That seemed to shut them up and they started walking back to their car. I have a fake cat figurine near my front door. It's quite lifelike at a distance. Then the butch brunette looked around and asked, "How much for the cat figurine?" At this point, I'm starting to get upset with their pushy behavior and treating my property like a flea market. I say, "Sorry, it's not for sale. Have a nice day," and close the door. I watched through the peephole to see them drive away and thought that was the end of a bizarre encounter. Later that night, as I'm leaving to go to the convenience store, I see a sticky note on the window of my project car in the driveway that reads, wanted to buy car with a phone number. They must have come back at night when I was at the store. What the flip? My fake cat now lives next to the back door, moved all the lumber to the backyard, and will be setting up security cameras. Choosing Beggar claims a medical emergency is no excuse for canceling his free demo. Let's jump right in. This actually happened on one of my days off, and I heard this from my coworkers that were there to witness it. So I can't say all the details are accurate, but I know the broad strokes of the story are true. A few years ago, I worked at a little shop that is best described as a retro toy store. It sold all kinds of old toys, but its bread and butter were marbles. In order to get people in the door, we had glass artists come in and demonstrate how they make marbles by hand. One of these glass artists was also one of the store's co-owners. Being a natural showman, he learned how to work with glass just so he could do the demos himself and put on a show for all his customers. These demos were of course free, and as I'm sure we all know, when you offer something for free, that's when the choosing beggars start coming out of the woodwork. One morning when we were setting up for the day, we got a call from the co-owner's wife. Apparently, he had suffered a heart attack and was currently in the hospital. Everyone was understandably concerned, but his wife assured us he seemed to be doing fine at the moment. She went on to explain that he would need to take some time off, and he definitely wouldn't be coming in that day. Once we got over the initial shock, we started figuring out who would need to do what to make up for his absence. The biggest and most immediate issue for the store was that he was scheduled to do the marble making demonstrations for that day. The other co-owner called the other glass artists to see if they could fill in for him last minute, but they were unavailable. So, with no other options left, she decided to cancel the demonstrations for that day. Unfortunately, it was the middle of summer, our busiest time of the year. Before the store was even open, there was a line of people outside the door waiting to see the first demonstration. We opened up and very politely explained to everyone waiting that we wouldn't be having any demos that day because the owner had a medical emergency that morning and wasn't able to come in. And almost everyone was completely understanding and sympathetic. They still came in, did some shopping, and we made sure to demo plenty of toys and games for the kids to play with. Things actually went pretty smoothly for most of the day, all things considered. That's when the choosing beggar arrived. In walks a man with his wife and 5 children. He pushes through the other customers to the counter where my coworker is stationed and demands to know when the next demo is starting. My coworker politely tells him what we've been telling other customers all day. Sorry sir, but the owner had a medical emergency and wasn't able to come in to do the demonstrations today. So unfortunately, we've had to cancel them. But you are free to take a look around the store if you like. We have some games your children can try in the other room. But he wasn't having it. He starts going off on my coworker about how he and his whole family drove all the way from Madunkalunka to see how marbles get made and that it isn't fair that they don't get a free demo. He then starts asking things like, "Is the owner the only one who does it? Can't you get someone else?" My coworker explains to him that we tried and that no one was available. Our manager was nearby helping other customers but was still keeping an eye on the situation, ready to handle things if my coworker decided to call her over. That's when she heard the choosing beggar say something that pushed her over the edge. I don't know what his exact words were, but it was something to the effect of, "How bad could this medical emergency even be?" As soon as she heard that, she immediately marched over to him and said, "Sir, I don't think you heard her earlier, so let me make this very clear. The owner had a heart attack this morning. That's why he couldn't come in. That's why we aren't able to do demonstrations today. I'm very sorry if that's an inconvenience for you." There was a moment of stunned silence while the choosing beggar took some time to process what had just happened. He looked around at the other customers who were looking at him. He looked at his family who were all looking at him. Then, in a huff, he collected his kids and stormed out. And everybody clapped. Okay, that's not true. Nobody clapped. In fact, as my coworkers tell it, it was pretty awkward afterwards, and you could cut the tension in the room with a knife. I guess seeing a grown man getting brutally dressed down in public is an uncomfortable thing to witness. But it did leave me with a very important lesson. When you take a Saturday off during the busiest time of year, you risk missing out on seeing some of the best customer meltdowns. But the rest of us agreed you should wake up earlier. This happened a few years ago and still irritates the heck out of me. My child attended a private high school about 45 minutes from my town. Since there was no bus or public transportation, the school provided a list of parent names and numbers so people can create their own carpools if they wanted. I worked halfway between my hometown and the school, and for the previous years I had offered to drive every morning and pick up every Friday afternoon if the other 3 parents in the carpool could divide the other 4 afternoon pickups between them. This had worked great for 2 years, and I didn't mind doing 5 mornings a week and my half-day Friday afternoon as long as the other 3 managed to get my child back to our hometown the other 4 afternoons. Since the 3 students I was driving graduated the previous year, I made my offer available to incoming freshman parents under the same agreement. 3 new families took me up on it. We met at a parking lot in our town each morning at 6:30 a.m. so I could get the children to school by 7:15 a.m. for a 7:30 a.m. start time. After about 2 weeks of driving daily, I had the following conversation by text, which was grouped to the other members of the carpool. "Hi, just checking in to see how things are going. So far, so good. The reason I am calling is my daughter really likes to get to school at least 30 to 45 minutes before start time in order to talk to her friends. So I talked to the other parents in the carpool and we all agreed to start meeting at 6 a.m. so all the kids can arrive at school earlier. Sorry, but I really am not going to wake up and get out 45 minutes early so your child can socialize before school." "But the rest of us agreed that we can meet earlier." "Yes, we can make that work." "Well, that's nice, but since I am the one that's driving every morning and must shower and get ready for work before meeting while both of you just drop your kids off in sweats and slippers, I am not willing to change my schedule." "That seems very selfish of you. My daughter says she is stressed out each day because she only has 15 minutes to get to homeroom and never has time to get a coffee or a donut. The other parents agree with me that earlier is better. I don't know why you are being so difficult." Silence from the other 2 families. Allow me to be clear. This is never going to happen as long as I am driving. I don't think you should have complete control over everyone's schedule simply because you are willing to drive every morning. Well, since you all agree, I suggest the other 3 of you figure out a way to get your children to and from school between you. I will be arranging to get my child home on my own going forward. I never spoke to anyone in the carpool group again and have often wondered if the other parents were pissed or embarrassed that Choosing Beggar screwed up a good thing for them, or if they all really agreed that I should wake up earlier and thought I was being selfish for wanting my beauty sleep. This was on one of my mom's pages. Potatoes or blackberries, anyone? Crops have come in, a nice surprise since I just moved here. I'm a little hesitant on saying pick what you want since a woman tried to back her truck up and pull out my blackberry bushes. I did put in the work when I saw what was growing, tending to the buds, using non-toxic repellents, even singing to them at night. All of a sudden, boom, fruits and veggies. So maybe $5 and you can fill a tin full. I just really don't want to have someone try to steal my entire bushes. She said free was free and called the cops on me. Thankfully, the police department handled it beautifully, but she made a whole scene in front of my kids who had been so excited to help people pick ripe blackberries. So, thanks Heather for trying to steal someone's entire garden because you got offered a few berries. A Choosing Beggar says, "Can you please turn the internet back on?" Let's jump right in. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. So this happened about 10 years back, but it still baffles me every time I think about it. We had lived in our family home all my life, never moved, but saw plenty of people in our street come and go over the years. The house next door to us was owned by a lovely person, but the tenants he would get weren't always the nicest, but we made do since they never really bothered us. One family that did move into that house was a large, noisy family who would always be up at ungodly hours making as much noise as possible. We had spoken to them a few times and they willingly quieted down, which was fine. To soothe everything over, they had invited my family to join them at night just to relax after work and unwind. We thought it was great, they were a lot of fun and seemed genuinely nice. Now, around this time, we were having problems with the internet at our house, dropping in and out, running out of data, the usual. We weren't the only ones in our street to notice it though, everyone was having the same problem, so we thought it's just some issues with the lines and didn't think much more on it. That was until the next billing cycle. We had just paid the bill ahead of time and knew there should be no issues. Then we got an email a few days later saying our data had been used up and we would have to pay an exorbitant amount per gigabyte. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was overly ridiculous. We checked the usage transactions and found a large amount had been downloaded on a day we knew we weren't home. We routinely made visits to my grandparents on that day, so no one was there to use the internet. Little did we know, the teenagers of the family next door were quite tech-savvy and had managed at some stage to steal not just ours, but most of the street's internet passwords. The only way we found this out, we had started turning our internet off overnight in case it was some of our devices doing automatic updates. This hadn't changed anything with the excessive data usage though, and we were still baffled. That was until one night, we had stayed up watching movies a bit later than usual and decided we should all head to bed and get some sleep. It was about midnight when we turned off the internet for the night. We had all just settled into our beds, put our heads on the pillow when there was a knock on the door. It was the neighbor's kids. They had the audacity to knock on our door at midnight and ask for us to turn our internet back on because they wanted to finish downloading a game for their PlayStation. Needless to say, we flipped the lid and my parents gave them a full lecture on stealing and whatnot, which I hope helped set them on the right path, but I will never know since they moved out very quickly after that. Pro tip, if you're stealing internet, don't tell the people you're stealing from. Choosing Beggar wants $200,000 of computers for free. I work for a large computer manufacturer and received an interesting email into my inbox about 6 months ago. Hi, I'm creating animated videos for Justin Bieber, Cardi B, and Drake. We need some new hardware to create this. Okay, sounds interesting, but I noticed that your email comes from a Gmail account. Yes, I'm working from home and so here is my business one. The domain went to a holding page. Suspicions are already beginning to rise, let alone it's a Gmail account originally. Taking the responsible course of action, pandemic and all, that it's potentially possible, I spoke to my head office marketing and explained what was being requested and what, if any, marketing potential and exposure it could bring. There are other divisions in the company which could have benefited alongside. So we agreed what we could get in terms of exposure and how much of a discount we were prepared to offer. I went back to them. So what is it you're looking for? Here's the list. It came to just short of $200,000, including servers, GPUs, 64 RTX 6000s for a start. Right, we would offer you around a 40% discount, but since none of these products will be seen, and the people that are the target market for this type of music are not likely to be our customer demographic, we are happy to offer you this big discount on the basis that there will be a making of, which we will be able to use and that we can get some sort of branding into the videos. Oh, I wasn't expecting to pay for it. So let me get this straight. You are making videos for said artists who all have record deals and are not short of a bob or two, but the record companies don't have the money to buy the equipment needed to make these videos to promote their artists. I am making them myself and then I'm going to show them to the record companies to see if they will work with us. Think about the publicity and promotion you will get. What? But I've always liked your stuff and thought you would help me. So you want $2,000 worth of stuff on the off chance that you might get more work and that we will get more exposure. If you do get more work, you will already have the equipment that cost you nothing, for which you are then going to charge massive amounts for your services. Yes, but think of the exposure. You want us to gamble $200,000 that you will produce something that a record company might pay for on the promise that there might be future opportunities. Sounds like a win-win for you and not for us. Bye-bye. A free apartment is not acceptable, and neither is a cheap one. I was talking to one of my cousins today about their upcoming kitchen renovations. The entire wall is wet and rotten because the upstairs neighbor had some plumbing issues and a water pipe burst. The landlord offered my cousin free housing for the duration of the renovations, as their kitchen would obviously be unusable and there would be no water or heating for 2 months. The first offer, a 1-bedroom apartment in the same building, rent-free for the duration of the construction. I refuse to take anything smaller than 2 bedrooms. How would I be able to sleep if the kids had the bedroom and my husband was watching TV in the living room? You and your husband take the bedroom and the kids sleep in the living room. No, that's not acceptable. The kids need to have a proper bedroom. Second offer, a 2-bedroom apartment in the building right next to the one they are living in now. Again, rent-free for the duration of the construction. I refuse to move to a different building. I should be allowed to choose an apartment from this building. Well, it's like 5 minutes away and it has 2 bedrooms. Unacceptable. How would the kids feel if they had to move to a different building? I refuse to move to a different building. The landlord has to give me 2-bedroom apartment from my building. Third offer, live anywhere you'd like at your own expense. No! I want to live in my building in a 2-bedroom apartment for free. The landlord can evict someone if they have to, but I want an apartment right here and not some next best thing. I really want to suggest that she keep paying rent normally while living with that rotten wall and get sick because of the mold. I mean, that sounds so much better than temporarily living in a rent-free apartment that isn't absolutely perfect. Choosing Beggar ruined a potential friendship with me because they offered me a free lift, then demanded money for it. I knew a guy through mutual friends and he seemed alright, although I was never really invested in him, just saw him as a friend of a friend. Anyway, he seemed to really like me and wanted to start a friendship with me, so he asked me to hang out with him in the city last week. We did so. We went out for drinks and had a pretty fun time. Then at close to 11 p.m. I said to him, "Thanks dude, had a fun time, but I have to go get the train home so I don't miss the last one." He was all like, "No way, I'm having so much fun with you, stay a while longer." I would love to, but if I don't leave now, I will miss the last train home and be stuck, so I literally have to go. "Well, where do you live?" "This suburb." Wow, that is a bit of a way out, but you know what? Don't stress. I will give you a lift home tonight, so don't worry. I said that was nice of him and agreed to stay a while longer, and he gave me a lift home an hour later, and I had a great time and thought he might be a new friend. Until the next day when I wake up to this text message. "Liked hanging out with you yesterday, dude. We have to do it again soon. Hey, I just realized that I spent about $10 in petrol driving you home. Can you send it to me through PayPal? Thanks, mate." "Sorry, $10 for what?" "For the petrol I spent driving you home, lol." "You told me the lift was on you in exchange for me agreeing to stay later. You never said anything about me having to pay for it." "Come on, man, you know petrol is expensive. It's just $10, no big deal, hey?" "Lol, true, no big deal, so let's just forget about it." "And we will, as soon as I have the $10. If I had known up front that he would be charging for the lift, I never would have accepted it, and I would have left early to get the train. I obviously refused to pay, and he said that our friendship was now over. Fine by me, mate. We have a choosing beggar who was really feeling the heat. Let's jump right in. So I am the lead technician and help run an HVAC company in Texas. We really try to help everyone we can and do what we can to make everyone comfortable in the Texas heat. Well, one day we had an incident with a choosing beggar that my boss knew. We shall call her Karen. Karen's outside unit on her air conditioning had a compressor that locked up and would never operate again. Luckily for her, we had a used outside unit that we could sell her and install for only $500. Awesome, right? Well, here is where things get interesting. I arrive. She had a gate on the right side of the house for me and my helper to go in and out of the backyard through. We grab our tools, go into the backyard, and get to work. I realized I needed another piece of equipment and went to go out of the side gate, only to find that it has been locked. I knock on the back door and request that the gate be unlocked, and she does so with a bit of a fight, but I just want to get the job done. We recover the burnt refrigerant from the system and unhook the electrical from the unit. We finally got it all disconnected and emptied and pulled it away from the house, and we're ready to get the used unit we brought and install it. And things go downhill. Once again, I find the gate to be locked. Once again, I knock on the back door and ask for it to be unlocked. She again does so, but again, not without a fight. Me and my helper got the used unit on a dolly and were rolling it into the backyard when I found the gate locked yet again. At this point, I'm livid. I get some tools from my van and take the gate off its hinges and set it against the house. Finally, we're in the backyard and able to get to work. I start to install the unit when Karen comes out and sees it, and here we go. She takes one look at it and has a disgusted look on her face. Why the hell is the unit so dirty? And why the hell did you take my gate off? Because it's a used unit that I uninstalled off of another house myself 2 years ago, and I removed the gate because you kept locking it, hindering my work and slowing down what I'm here to do. I locked it because I have small dogs. Well, keep the dogs inside. I have a job to do and I need access to my tools. She scoffs and goes back inside. I thought that I had heard the end of it. I was wrong. I'm in the middle of brazing the copper pipes together when she comes back outside and raises a storm about how dirty the unit is, knowing the unit is used and she is getting a hell of a deal for the price. I can't believe you would sell me a unit that is this dirty. You knew exactly what you were getting when you wanted a used unit, Karen. It has a bit of wear on it and is a bit dirty, but it works and you are getting a deal. I just expected it to at least look new. That's not how used products work. At this point, I was fuming. I walked past her and went through the now open back fence to the front yard to call my boss. I told him everything and he calmly asked me only one question. Do you feel it is in our interest to deny service? I said yes, absolutely. He told me to uninstall our used unit and reinstall the old busted unit. You got it, boss. I returned to the backyard where Karen stood, yelling at my helper. I'm sorry, Karen, but we are no longer comfortable doing business with you, and we'll reinstall your old unit and be on our way. Why aren't you comfortable with it anymore? Do you want the company response or one from me? Yours. Buckle up, kiddos. Because you are selfish, a narcissist, and you can't just accept a good deal when it's in front of you. On top of that, you locked me and my helper in your backyard 3 times before I eventually just took the gate off. You complain about the unit being dirty even though you are getting it for $500, even though I should be charging you well over $1,000 for it. Overall, you are just a witch. She just looked at me slack-jawed and went inside. I reinstalled her old unit and packed up. We never heard from her again. And even if she does call, we will not be doing any further business with her. And that is how I fired my first customer. We have a choosing beggar who owes some money. I'm sure it should be paid back in no time. Nice car. Please, just pay off your loan to me. A little today. Hi, I have work in Orlando that you can do to pay you a portion of the $150. I have 5 hours on Saturday and Sunday for you at $12 per hour. That's $120. Can you do this? If so, I have the location and job details. So you're coming to Orlando to work so you can pay me. Cool. Because it kind of read like I'd be working to make money and that would somehow pay off your debt. A choosing beggar co-worker who is too good for a free meal at Christmas. The company I work for announced a while back that there won't be a Christmas party this year, for obvious reasons. This is my first year with the company, but from what I've heard, the party is a pretty great time, so everyone was quite disappointed. At the event, each employee receives a gift card to a local mall or business. The amount varies, but it's typically in the range of $50. Nothing to sneeze at for sure. Anyway, it was announced that in lieu of a Christmas party, the company was going to provide a gift box for each of us containing a turkey, some vegetables, a pie, and some other items to round out a nice Christmas dinner. Most of us thought that this was a nice gesture, seeing as that would have been pretty easy to simply cancel the party, cite the pandemic as the reason and save a bunch of money. One coworker, the choosing beggar in question, was not happy with this. During our shift last Thursday, the manager phoned us up saying that our boxes were ready for pickup and that we could pack up early. Choosing Beggar blew up, ranting on and on about what an insult this gift was, how it's beneath him, and how he wants a gift card or nothing. Keep in mind, this is a grown man, and people were around. Real embarrassing sight. We tried to talk him down, but he continued to say how insulting and demeaning this was, and how he doesn't need a turkey. Well, fair enough, you're one guy and that's a lot of food. A coworker of ours, who is a real sweet young lady, but unfortunately not very well off, asked if he could pick up his box and give it to her and her family. Choosing Beggar refused, saying that he wouldn't touch it out of principle. The food bank was also out of the question. He even phoned the manager back to tell him what he had just told us. The manager was rightfully pissed and sent him home for the day, telling him that by refusing to pick it up today, he was forfeiting everything and that he couldn't backtrack later on. Choosing Beggar agreed and stormed off, so the rest of us went off to pick up our meals. A bit of an aside here, out of the 4 of us on the crew that day, 2 of us had been forced to go to the food bank at least a couple times in the past few years, so listening to this guy go on about how a free meal wasn't good enough for him had us rather angry, especially considering the state of the world right now. Back to the story. We showed up at the shop and the gift box blew our expectations out of the water. A 22-pound turkey, bags of vegetables, an apple pie, stuffing, gravy, and cranberry sauce, all locally grown and handmade, complete with a baking tray, meat thermometer, and instructions on how to prep and cook everything. And, for a little icing on the cake, tucked into the corner of each box was the $50 gift card that Choosing Beggar was ranting on and on about. Choosing Beggar's gift box, complete with a gift card, ended up going to the food bank after all. This is John from /bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to see more of them, then hit that subscribe button. We'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.